In this challenge, I'm going to see if I can win a game of Settlers of Catan blindfolded. I've been wanting to try this since I watched a Netflix show about chess called The Queen's Gambit. And I mean, chess masters have been playing blindfolded chess for centuries. But with Catan, this has never been done before. But after hundreds of games, rigorous practice, tricking my friends into playing me, and a strong cup of coffee, I think I can pull it off. And while my friends set up the board, let us quickly go over the specific rules of this challenge. The first rule is that I'm blindfolded for the entire game, except for 2 minutes before the game starts to look at the board. The second rule is that my opponents will always know all my resource and development cards. So that's in fact a challenge in itself. And the third rule is that my opponents have to truthfully say what happens in the game. If something is built, you have to say where it's built. If a number is rolled, you have to say which number, etc. So now we're clear on the rules, let's take a look at the board. In the 2 minutes I have to look at the board, I focused on the spots with ore and wheat, because they're the best resources. But I also look for patterns, and I noticed the wheat hexes are shaped in a structured way, which makes them easier to remember. The ore hexes, however, are all on the left side of the board. The spots around the desert hex are not that hard either, because you only have to focus on 2 combinations, 8-4-3 and 5-10-2. I will admit that even during my best practices, I struggled to remember the boards, and this game is no exception. After the 2 minutes were done, I put the blindfold back on and I couldn't see a thing. This is a visualization of what I consciously remembered about the board. I remember most of the best spots, like 8-4-3, the 6-5-11 and the 5-9-10. I could also roughly remember their location, but in a way I was able to think of them as puzzle pieces, but I wasn't sure where the pieces fit exactly. After we threw the dice to determine who gets to start, I roll the highest, so I go first. I select the 8-4-3 double ore wheat because I don't expect other ore wheat spots to come back to me. I also think the 8-4-3 works really well with the many wheat sheep spots in the game, to play a full ore wheat sheep strategy. One of the best strategies in the game. Next up is Jente. I've never played Catan with Jente before, but he's really good at many different board games, so I was prepared for anything. But right away, he threw me off guard by selecting the 5-9-12. It's not that it's a bad spot, but I completely forgot the location and the resource of the 12. Jente's road is risky. It's generally not a good idea to point your road to other free hex spots, because your opponents might still select them. And next up is Hessel. I've played Catan against him once, and what I remember from that game is that he is a fairly loose trader. So I can offer some pretty sharp deals, and if they're somewhat reasonable, I think he's willing to accept them. He's allowed to place 2 settlements in a row, because he's the last player to place. Hessel selects the 6-11-12 and the 6-5-11. His setup is pretty good, as he might be able to place some quick settlements on the 9-4-11 and the 5-4-10. Jente's second placement is the 5-10-2, which is solid. He has strong ore, wheat and sheep to buy cities and development cards. He also has some brick to trade, and once he settles on the sheep port, he can port his additional sheep into whatever he wants. I'm next, but I know I have a problem. I know there's an 8-4-3 here, but I don't know what resources are with the 8-4-3 anymore. The 6-man 2 I ended up taking wasn't the best option. However, I knew it was available. In fact, I think 5-4-10, 9-10-11 and 6-4-3 are all better options. But it's what I knew that was available, so I'll just have to make the best of it. My biggest issue is that I have loads of wood, but 0 brick to pair it with. I also have no port, so I have to trade 4 woods with the bank for a card of my choice, which is wildly inefficient. Or I could trade with my opponents. Fortunately for me, neither Hessel or Jente produces a lot of wood, so I might actually be able to trade some here and there. So offering a wood trade is the first thing I do. Does any one of you want a wood?
Yeah, I could use a wood.
Okay. This trade makes sense for both of us, because I gain a wheat that I only produce on a wheat number, and the same is true for Hessel, as he produces wood on a number that doesn't roll as much either. After Jente rolls a 6 and Hessel a 10, it's my turn again and I roll a 9. Now my hand is 4 wood, 1 sheep and 1 wheat. In order to build the new settlements, I need to build a road first. So I need bricks, which I don't produce. So I make another trade offer, and this time Jente is interested. Yeah, okay, I can do brick for wood. Do you have a second brick by any chance to trade?
I do have a second brick.
Would you want to do 2 wood for 2 brick?
Yeah, sure.
This is a massive deal for me, because I get 2 rare bricks and I can build a settlement right away on a useful board. The 2 woods are good for Jente too, because he doesn't produce any. Overall, the deal's in my advantage though, because I can do something right away. I decide to double up on a free wheat, because that's the only port spot I remember. I think it's a good spot regardless, because this way I get more wheat and that pairs well with the many ores I produce to build a city faster. A big difference with a normal game of Catan is that while I'm blindfolded, I mainly focus my attention on the cards I hold in my hand. In normal games, I try to remember the cards my opponents hold instead. However, I couldn't really do that because I was at my mental limit trying to remember everything else. But I think I did a very good job remembering my own cards. It also helps that whenever a number rolls, people are used to saying things like a 10, so that's a brick for Jente, and the other 10 is empty, simply to confirm with the table that they're not making a mistake handing out cards. Speaking of which, Jente rolls a 10, and the following turn Hessel rolls a 7. But because I don't hold any cards, I get off lucky, as he solo blocks Jente. However, it didn't last long, because 2 turns later, Jente blocks my free wheat. But I get off easy again, because I roll a 7 on my turn too.
On the 6 where there's 2 settlements on, so I think that's very effective.
Alright, so I'll give you my wheat.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a good card. The reason I'm so happy with the wheat is because I'm saving to build a city. And wheat is very difficult to get for me. In fact, I only get the second wheat a few turns later from a wood trade with Hessel, and I built the city on the 8 for free. Now I have a commanding lead. So Jente and Hessel need to work together to stop me and block my best spots. So it's an excellent move that when Jente rolls a 7 the next turn, he solo blocks me again. Fortunately, I roll a 7 myself, and this time I know where to block them both, because both Hessel and Jente received the wheat when the 5 rolled a few turns ago. So I know where to put a robber now. However, selecting which card to steal leads to a whole new situation. After that, quite a few turns go by in which not that much happens. However, I do manage to buy 2 development cards. The first is a victory point and the second card is a knight. Knights are pretty good, because if I activate 3 knights before Hessel or Jente does, I gain 2 victory points from the largest army, which would get me quite close to the 10 victory points I need to win the game. If you look at the dice roll so far, you can tell I'm getting quite lucky with how many 9s and 6s have rolled so far. Therefore, it's easy for me to build another settlement on the 8 ore. But I must admit, I forgot I had the 3 for 1 port twice during these trades. Nevertheless, I'm at 6 points and Jente and Hessel are still at 2. But the game's not done until it's done, because I don't know which endgame challenges I run into while being blindfolded. On top of that, Hessel settles on a crazy good 9 for 11 spot and he gets his 3rd point of the game. However, this is a big problem for Jente, because he can't settle on a 9, 10, 11 anymore with Hessel's settlement blocking the spot. Because of this, Jente decides to build his road someplace else, but he makes a mistake. Instead of building a consecutive road on the 5 ore to settle on the sheep port, he decides to start a new project towards the brick port right away. In the meantime, I bought a new development card. This time it's a road builder, which allows me to play 2 roads for free when I activate it. With this draw, a sneaky plan came to mind, because if I build 3 more roads, I'll have 5 consecutive roads. This would give me the longest road card, and with that 2 additional victory points. I'm at 6 points now, so with the largest army and the longest road for 2 points each, I win the game. Hessel sees this coming, and he buys a development card himself. If he activates 3 knights before I do, he takes the largest army instead. He also settles on the 10 for 11, so it's a massive turn for Hessel. Fortunately, I remember I have a 3 for 1 port this time, so I trade free wood with the bank, which allows me to buy another development card. And it turns out to be my second knight. Now, timing is of the essence, because you can only activate 1 development card per turn. So I activate the knight I bought a few turns ago and I block Hessel with the robber. I end my turn, Jente rolls a 6 but does nothing and he passes on the dice. Next up is Hessel and he rolls a 4, however he didn't pull a knight last turn, so he can't contest me for the largest army. After Hessel passes me the dice, I roll an 11. I buy my 3rd knight, which is all I need for the largest army. So I activate my 2nd knight right away. Now I'm getting close to history, because I only need to activate 1 more knight and build 3 more roads, so I can literally smell the victory. Jente rolls a 9, passes the dice, and Hessel rolls another 6. Hessel buys another development card and passes me the dice. I roll the first 2 of the game and I activate my 3rd knight. Therefore I get the 2 victory points from the largest army, which gives me 8 points. Therefore, I only need to build 3 more roads and I win the game. Jente rolls a 7, but mistakenly doesn't block me, but Hessel. However, it doesn't matter, because Hessel moves the robber to my 8 with his 1st knight. And he rolls the 3rd free of the game, which is big for me. He passes the dice, I roll a 7, but it doesn't matter, because with the wood and the free wheat I already had in my hand, as well as the 3 for 1 port, I can build a road. And with the 2 more roads from the road builder development card, I make 6 consecutive roads. This gives me the longest road card, which brings me to 10 victory points. So I win the game against Hessel's 5 and Jente's 2. I'm curious to see if you know more challenges I could maybe pull off on the Catan board, so please let me know in the comments. If you want to learn more about what I know about Catan strategy, I recommend you watch this video next. And as always, thank you for watching and have a great day.